Hello, and welcome to our divorce clinic where Atlantic and Cape May County Superior Court staff and a representative from South Jersey Legal Service from Atlantic County will discuss the process to file for divorce. My name is Karen Michael, and I am with the Superior Court of Atlantic and Cape May Counties. I work in the Resource Center. I will tell you more about the services we provide later in this clinic. Hopefully you have one of our divorce packets with you. If you don't, but would like to receive one, please feel free to contact the Superior Court of Atlantic and Cape May Counties Resource Center. Our contact information, as well as the contact information and for additional resources, will be displayed at the end of this clinic. During this clinic, we will not be giving legal advice. If you wish to seek legal advice, you can contact South Jersey Legal Services or your county bar association. Now, I would like to introduce you to two individuals that will be leading this clinic. Nicole Hurtado, who is with the Superior Court of Cape May County Family Division, and Katrina Tatali, an attorney with South Jersey Legal Services of Atlantic County.
Hi, as Karen just said, I'm Nicole Hurtado. I am going to go over the divorce packet that will just go through the instructions that we will start with the first page. Okay, so as you see on the screen right now, it's the first page that just tells you how to go ahead and file for divorce or dissolution of a civil union or termination of a partnership. So the second page here, it's just going to go through, it's just letting you know that it's for people who are representing themselves for the divorce or the dissolution. And down at the bottom, it's just telling you that the grounds for divorce that this packet is using is irreconcilable differences. Now, there are other grounds that you can do, but you would need additional forms and there's additional steps that are also involved. And if for any reason you are going to terminate a domestic partnership, you would just need to go ahead and blank out the words divorce and go ahead and put in termination of domestic partnership. Let's go ahead and go on to step 2 of the instructions. This resource book was produced by South Jersey Legal Services along with the Superior Court of New Jersey. And it's just a guide for you to go ahead and know how to have the appropriate forms to file for divorce. It is just important to know that this guide is not a substitution for any type of legal advice. Down a little lower in there, it's just saying, what should I expect when I go ahead and represent myself? So it just lets you know that although court staff were not able to give you any legal advice, what we are able to do is we're able to give you some procedural information as to which forms need to be filed when, or if there's information that's missing out of those forms. If you choose to represent yourself and that you find that the forms are a little bit difficult to understand, you're more than welcome to reach out through our resource centers. And there's both one in Atlantic County and also in Cape May County. Now we'll go on and go to the next page. This packet, this divorce packet is set up into 2 different steps. So the first step will go ahead and it'll have in there your forms as to the complaint for divorce. It's going to have your non-collusion forms, your affidavit of insurance, and also your self-representation form. And then it's very important to just go ahead and complete the forms through the steps that are set up through the packet. And then once you get all your documents back from the court, you can go ahead and move on to step 2. Now that's a lot of information in there, but we're going to break it down step by step as we go through the forms that are in each step. So we can go ahead and go to the next page. Now, this just tells us that there's 3 different types of ways to get divorced. The most voluminous or difficult way would be if there's a contested divorce. And that kind of just takes it through that there's additional steps and hearings that will be required throughout your divorce process. The other one is an uncontested, where both parties want to get divorced and both parties, either the defendant waives their right and just kind of does acknowledge that they've received service and that they're waiving any type of answer to the court. The other one is your default divorce, where the defendant just defaults to answer to do anything. So there are the 3 different divorces, ways to get divorced onto there, and then we'll turn the page and that goes ahead and tells us into step 1. So this is just telling us that these are the forms behind this page that we are going to need for this process. Now, once again, it just goes ahead and it tells us up here at up at the top that the forms that are in step 1, so we can read through those. It's the complaint for divorce, dissolution, termination of a domestic partnership, certification and verification of non-collusion, certification of insurance, certification of self-representation, and also the confidential litigant sheet. Now, once I said, we'll go ahead and go through each one of those. This packet, once again, is designed just for your reconcilable differences, which is basically the cause of action saying that we're just no longer getting along and the marriage isn't salvageable. So there are other cause of actions that can go through anything from adultery to habitual drunkenness. There's a multitude of different cause of actions, but that will require additional research and on your part that you can do in our law library or from our resource center. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next page, which just talks about the filing fees. Now, to file the filing fee for a complaint for divorce is $300. If there are children involved in the complaint, then there's an additional $25 so that you're required to go to a parent education class that goes ahead and gives you some techniques as to how you can continue to co-parent. The only exception in that is that if the parties have a final restraining order, you're exempt from going to that class. If once you complete your paperwork, you can either file it electronically on the judiciary's website through our JEDS program. So once you could also fill out the forms and mail them to the courthouses. The courthouse addresses are both on this form. The only exception is if you are mailing it into Cape May County Superior Court, the mailing address is 4 Moore Road. And again, it's just Cape May Courthouse, New Jersey. So you just want to change that address on the top as opposed to from the actual physical location. Additionally, you would just want to include a self-addressed stamped envelope so that we can return those documents back to you. One additional information that I do want to point out is that if you cannot afford the filing fee, you are more than welcome to fill out a fee waiver, which we can mail to you if you need that form. You can also get that off the njcourts.com website. It's just important that you include all your financials that the form is asking you for. And if that gets approved, then we will go ahead and file the complaint for divorce for you. And once again, this form is just telling us again that what's going to be in the pages, the next pages to come. So we'll turn that and that'll take us to the complaint for divorce.
Hi, my name is Katrina Titoli. I'm an attorney with South Jersey Legal Services, practicing mostly in family law, and I will be assisting Nicole in going over the forms with you. So the first form is the complaint for divorce. And on the top, you're going to put your name. If you are filing the initial complaint, you will be the plaintiff, and the person that you are filing against, the person you are in a marriage, civil union, or domestic partnership with, will be the defendant. So you will put your name, your current address, and your telephone number on the top of the form. When you go down to the county, that's the county where the complaint is filed, and we'll go down in the bottom and it will provide more context as to that, but that would either be in the county that you are living in. The docket number you can leave blank. That's assigned by the court after it's filed. So you put your name as plaintiff, the other party's name as the defendant, and then you can fill in the blanks for number 1 with that same information, your address, your city, your county. For number 2, you're going to put whether you're in a marriage, civil union, or domestic partnership with the defendant, the other individual, on the date, and whether the ceremony is a civil or religious ceremony performed by whomever officiated it. There's another page to the complaint that continues on with more of the requirements under the law that you need to have. Again, as Nicole stated, paragraph 3 explains that this is a complaint for irreconcilable differences for a period of 6 months or more. If you would like to file a complaint for another grounds, you would need to get a different form and you wouldn't be able to use these forms. For number 4, you would state whether it's a marriage, a civil union, or a domestic partnership. Same thing for number 6. And then when you go down to number 8, you're going to have to put the address of your address. And then for number 9, you're going to have to put the defendant's address. If you were residing together at the time, that's okay. You can put the same address for both. However, make sure that when you file the paperwork, you have a good address for the defendant, because you will need to be able to serve him or her, and the court will need contact information for the other party. If you don't have that information, there's a way that you can go about getting it, and the Court Resource Center, I believe, can help you do that. When you go down to number 10, the complaint lists if there are any children born or adopted during your marriage, civil union, or domestic partnership. You would list all of your children and their birth dates. And going on to the next page, you would need to disclose to the court any and all litigation or court cases, including domestic violence, custody, child support, anything that you've been involved in with the other party that affects or impacts your relationship or your children. If you have the docket number, you need to list the docket number as well. If you don't have that information and you don't have the documents, you can contact the court in the county that you had that case, and they might be able to provide that information to you. When you get past the wherefore clause, these are all of the things that you may or may not be asking the court to give you in the divorce or dissolution. So you would need to put a check next to each letter for anything that you're asking for. Obviously, you will be asking to dissolve the marriage or civil union. So you would check A, and then depending on which provisions are applicable to you, you would check off B through I. You sign the bottom and print your name.
So the certification and verification non-collusion is basically just a statement from you saying that I'm the plaintiff in this complaint for divorce, and all the information that I just put in the complaint is 100% true to the best of my knowledge. It just goes through and says that, there's that you're not giving any false statements in this verification. So what you would do is you would go ahead and sign it, and then also state your name, print your name underneath there, and date it as well.
Okay, the next form is the certification of insurance. And similar to the complaint, you're going to put your name, your address, and your telephone number on the top so that the court knows who is filing these documents. You would fill out the caption the same way with the county. You can leave the docket number blank if you complete it when you don't have one. And then as soon as it's filed, the complaint is filed and the court returns it to you, you will have a docket number, and you'll need to fill that docket number in for all of the documents you file in your case. So once you fill out your name and the other party's name, you would go down and fill in the blanks regarding whether you're the plaintiff and the defendant, whether it's a divorce or dissolution, and you'll be using this form to certify that all of the insurance policies that you listed are all of the insurance you have, and to the best of your knowledge, you haven't modified or changed any of those provisions. Now, you will need to go through this form and get any and all information you have regarding the life insurance for you or for the other party, or health insurance for you, the other party, and any and all children, and any automobile insurance, homeowners insurance, any other insurances that you have for yourself or for the other party. You sign the bottom to certify this is your sworn statement that this is all of the insurance that exists, and these are all the correct policy numbers and information. And you would date the bottom, and this would be part of your filing.
Okay, the next form is the certification of self-representation. And just as the other forms, you're going to go ahead and complete this form with putting your information in as the plaintiff, the defendant's information, complete the county, and still you're not going to have a docket number, so you can leave that blank. The first line below that, you're going to put your name being of full age, they're certifying. And that, you're just going to check that you're the plaintiff in the case, and that you are representing yourself, and that also you are aware that the court has a number of complementary dispute resolutions. So whereas only a judge can actually rule on your case, only a judge can divorce you or separate property order child support, there's a number of different ways that you can minimize the cost of the divorce if there's attorneys involved, is by going to different steps throughout the court where mediation or a conference where you can go ahead and meet. So you're just stating that the next page is behind this document. It just goes ahead and explains to you the different alternatives that the court has in place for you. So you would just go ahead and sign that document and date that as well. So it'll go through, it's telling us that there's mediation, there's arbitration, there's other professionals that are able to go ahead and assist you in dissolving the marriage or the civil union or domestic partnership.
The next form we're going to go over is the confidential litigant information sheet. And each party in the case is required to fill out this sheet to provide various personal identifiable information for both yourself and the other party. So you're going to fill out this form if you have the docket number, or if you have a child support case number from a previous custody or child support case, you would fill that in. You would indicate whether there's a domestic violence order in this case so that the court has knowledge of all the other proceedings between you. And then you're going to fill out as much information as you have, both about yourself and the other party, including your names, your social security numbers, your dates of birth, your addresses, employment information, your contact information, your professional licenses, your driver's licenses, and information regarding your children and if you or the other party have an attorney, their information and the healthcare coverage for your children, so that the court has a record of that. Now, this form, although both parties are required to fill it out, you do not send a copy of this form to the other party when you serve them. You only send it to the court, and the court keeps it confidential in the event that they need any of this information. And the same thing goes with the other party. If they filed an answer to the complaint and they were to fill out this form, they would send a copy to the court, but a copy would not go to you.
Okay, the next form is just going to be your cover letter that you're going to include to the court. So just as before, you're going to put your information, your address, telephone number, date. You're going to go ahead, the county that it's going to, and the address that you're sending it to. Regarding is going to be the case caption of your complaint. So, just as the plaintiff versus the defendant, and the docket number will also still remain blank. And so you're going to go through this. This is saying, dear, madam or sir, these are the documents that I've enclosed along with 2 additional copies. So it's going to be your complaint for divorce. It's going to include the certification of verification and non-collusion, the certification of insurance, the certification in this packet is called self-representation, and also the complementary dispute resolution. If you are looking to have your filing fee waived, you would include your waiver of fees with the form, also the proposed form for the judge to sign. You may want to include a family case information statement, but that's not required upon the first step of filing immediately. The confidential litigant sheet, your money for the parents' education program if there's children involved, and then also the filing fee for the complaint for divorce. You're just going to go ahead and sign that and either drop it off at the court or mail it in. You could also file it electronically as well now.
The next form in the packet is the summons, and you would fill out this form on the top, the same as you fill out the complaint and all of the other certifications, with your name, your address, your telephone number to let the court know who's filing it. You fill out the county and the docket number. Now, you would fill this form out after you get the filed complaint back from the court. So you will have a docket number, and you would need to serve this summons upon the defendant with a copy of the complaint at the time they are served. So you would fill in the caption, the plaintiff, you, the defendant, the other party, and this would notify the other party that you filed a complaint and gives them information on what they need to do and what their legal rights and obligations are. And then on the next page, it gives them more information regarding what happens if they don't file the respond to the complaint, and legal services information if they would like to try and get legal advice. In the middle, although it seems kind of counterintuitive, you are going to sign the name of the Superior Court Clerk, Michelle Smith, and initial it so that the court knows who signed her name, and then you date it, and the bottom would be the information you fill out for the defendant for when you send it for service, so that the process server or the sheriff's department knows and where the defendant lives or where the defendant works. If you don't have their address, the residential address, a rough physical description of him or her, and the best time that you believe they would be able to serve him or her so that they can try to get service the first time and not have to keep going back. I guess this form is also part of the summons, and this is the form that you provide to the sheriff's office when you send the summons for service, and they complete this form and state on the date which address they went to serve the defendant, and then they sign whether they were able or when they were able to serve him or her, and a description of the person in the event that they dispute whether they were served or not. And then the sheriff's office will return this form to you, and you would need to file it with the court to inform the court that the defendant was served. This sheet is just a list of the legal services programs in the state of New Jersey. There's both Legal Services of New Jersey, and then each region of New Jersey has separate legal services organizations that also have phone numbers. So you can contact both Legal Services of New Jersey, the larger organization, and you can also contact the county organizations to get assistance.
This next form is just telling you the different addresses and contacts for the county bar associations, in case once you've gone through the forms and you think that you would prefer to reach out to an attorney to either discuss your case or to obtain representation. They can give you a list of family attorneys that or attorneys that practice family law in the county. Just like, unfortunately, court staff is not able to give you any names of any attorneys that do practice in the area. Now, the next page is just telling you to stop. So once you complete all those documents that are before here, you're going to go ahead and mail those into the courthouse with that cover letter, your check, your payment, money order, and send that into the courthouse. Now, you're not going to do anything until you get your documents back from the courthouse. And when you get them back, it's going to have a filed stamp on it, whether it's electronic up at the top or an actual stamp on it. And it is going to have a docket number on there for you. Now, the docket number will only be placed on the complaint for divorce. So you just want to make sure that you use that docket number that's going to begin with an FM, that's Frank Mary, and transfer that over to every other document that you go ahead and submit to the court going forward.
Nicole, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So the summons where you're serving the other party, so that's included in step one, but you wouldn't have that initially, correct? Because you're waiting for the docket number. That's it. So is that submitted with all of that paperwork, or are you submitting that separately after filing the complaint with the court?
So that's a great question. Actually, the summons is not a required document in step one. Some prefer to send it in step one, or some prefer to send it in at a later time. But once you get the complaint for divorce back from the county, you're going to have all your documents except for that confidential litigant sheet, just as Katrina had said that document only gets filed with the court. It doesn't get sent off to the other party. So you're going to put all your documents, and then right on top of the complaint for divorce, you're going to put your summons. And that's going to tell the defendant that there has been a lawsuit, for lack of better words, filed in the Superior Court for them. And it tells them how they can go ahead and answer that complaint for divorce. So you can either submit that in step one, or you can submit that in step two. It's not a requirement in step one. Does that answer your question, Ellen?
It does, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll go on to step 2. In step 2, there's a multitude of documents. So if you weren't serving the person via either sheriff's officer or a private service processor, there you can serve the defendant yourself. And we'll go into that later in the form. So there's the acknowledgement of service of the summons and the complaint. There's another document called the acknowledgement of service, summons and complaint and waiver. So if they didn't want to answer, they could sign the waiver. Certification of non-military service. We'll go into that as well. There's a family case information statement that has all your financials that I don't believe is in this form, but we can always get that to you. And then there's also the request to enter default with supporting certification, the notice of equitable distribution, which may or may not need to be filed. And then if the defendant does answer your complaint for divorce or enters an appearance, you then may also need to use the answer to counterclaim as well. Okay, so this next just goes ahead and tells you that once you've received the complaint back from the Superior Court of New Jersey, that it's now time to have the defendant served. We'll go into deeper things. So you can either use, like I had stated, you can use your local sheriff's office to serve, or the sheriff who is in the county where the defendant resides. They provide that service to go ahead and serve the forms. And then they'll send you the affidavit of service that the defendant has been served. Or you can go ahead and use a private process server. And once you do that, once you get those documents, you do want to file them with the Superior Court once you get those back in. We can go on to the next page. The next page now gives us the list of sheriff's departments and how to contact them. And this would just be a cover letter that you would want to give to the sheriff, just saying, your name, your address, and all that information. That's just saying that the summons and the complaint, the certification of insurance, and the complementary dispute resolution are all included in this packet. And that it's, to be served upon, you would put the defendant's name on there. And then just go ahead and sign it and send that off to the sheriff.
So the next 2 forms are very similar. This one is the acknowledgement of service of summons and complaint, and we're going to get to the other one in a second. But this one is a form if you would like to, as Nicole said, attempt to serve the other party yourself. If you believe that they would be willing to sign this form, acknowledging that they were served with the summons and complaint, you would fill out your information on the top, the county, the docket number, the caption, your name versus their name, and then if they are willing to sign this form in the presence of a notary, it has to be signed in the presence of a notary. So the defendant would write the date and would sign that space, and then the notary underneath would put their seal and fill out the required information, certifying to the court that this document was signed by the defendant, the notary, using the notary's confirmation. Now, this form specifically says that the defendant is acknowledging they were served with the summons and the complaint. And when we go to the next form, it's also an acknowledgement of service of the summons and complaint and a waiver. The difference is that you would fill out the form the same way. You put your information on the top, your name, address, telephone, the county, the docket number that you got back from the court, your name versus the defendant's name. And then this form, instead of just saying, I'm acknowledging that I've received the summons and complaint, the defendant is saying they received the summons and complaint. They're confirming whether they are or are not in the military. And if they would like to waive the 35-day answer period and not file an answer, they would check that box and sign it in the presence of a notary. Now, this form is used if there are not issues and there's an uncontested divorce, or if the parties already have an agreement and they just would like the divorce to be processed. If you think that you are in that situation, you can use this form and would not have to wait the 35-day period to file for default, and that would keep your case moving.
Okay, so this form is just saying that, what to do after serving the defendant. So as Katrina had said, if you're amicable and the two of you and the defendant is willing to accept service and have his or her signature signed and notarized, then they can acknowledge service. If they're not wishing to answer the complaint for divorce or to enter any type of appearance with the court, they may want to go ahead and sign off on the waiver. Now that becomes important because once the defendant is served, they have 35 days from the day that they've been served to answer the complaint for divorce. And that'll come in as a key point once we go into a couple of the other forms. But if the defendant's not looking to do anything with the divorce, they can just go ahead and waive the time. And it's kind of like, if you want to refer it to maybe Disney, it's kind of a fast pass onto getting the marriage dissolved or the partnership dissolved onto there. So we can go on to the others. So prior to scheduling a default hearing, the court needs to receive the acknowledgement of service. Additionally, as well, the certification of non-military. And that becomes a very important part because there's the Soldier Sailor Act, which prohibits any court from entering a default or a judgment against someone who is actively deployed serving our country. So the acknowledgement of service is a form that goes in. It's just stating it's in the packet a little later. You're just going to say how you know the defendant is not in the service. And then it also has a link to the Department of Defense website that will go ahead and print out a little form for you to also submit to the court. Lastly, after you have all the documents in to the court, you can then submit your request to enter default. The request to enter default and certification is just stating that the defendant was served, when they were served, the date, and that they failed to answer the complaint for divorce, and that you're wishing the court to go ahead and give you a court date. Additionally, there's the notice of equitable distribution, which will be needed anytime that you're asking the judge to give you an order in regards to distributing assets. So any assets, debts, child support, parenting time, anything that you're looking for the judge to adjudicate other than just dissolving the marriage or resumption of a maiden name.
The next form that we're going to go over is the certification of non-military service. On the top, you would fill out your name, your address, your information, the county, the docket number, your name as the plaintiff, the other party's name as the defendant, and the first blank, you're going to say I, your name, certify that. You're going to identify whether you're the plaintiff or the defendant. You're going to state the information you know about the defendant, such as their address, where you've recently seen them, whether the children have seen them, whether you've spoken to them, where they work, and any information regarding whether that you know of as to whether they are in the military. Now, on the bottom, after it says and or, there are boxes that you need to check that state that you have gone through the Department of Defense website and done a search as to whether that individual is an active duty military member. So you would need to go to that website and do the search, print the form and attach it. If you need assistance with that, the Court Resource Center can help you do that. Now, even if you had the defendant sign the acknowledgement of service and waiver, you're still going to need to complete this form. And you would sign it and date it on the bottom, and you would submit it to the court with your request to enter default.
Okay, the next form is your request to enter default. And this is the last form that you need to complete. So all the other documents all need to be submitted into the court. And this form, you're going to go ahead, you're going to fill in all your name, address, telephone number up the top, the county that you're filing it in, the docket number, the name of the plaintiff, the name of the defendant. And then you're saying, you're going to go through and it's going to say to the court that please enter default against the defendant. You're going to put the defendant's name on there. And then you're going to go ahead and put your name. And you're then going to fill out down below that the summons and the complaint were served upon the defendant, put the defendant's name in there, and the date that the defendant was served. Then you're going to roll to the next page of the form, and you're just going to check which either box, whether it's A, B, C, or D, as to how the defendant was served. So you can either serve the defendant by the sheriff's officer or a private process server. The acknowledgement of service form. Now, unfortunately, the return receipt and mailing of a summons is not good service for the complaint. So we don't allow that as service. You're going to, you can use a substitution of service, but there's additional filings that are required in there that may be used at a later time. You would have to file a motion requesting for substitution of service by publication. So it's usually just either A or B of the two boxes that you're going to check. And then you're, again, just certifying that the information is correct. You're going to sign it where it says plaintiff's signature, print your name, and go ahead and date it.
The next form is the notice of proposed final judgment. I'm going to complete the top the same as you did the other forms with your name, your address, your telephone number, the county, the docket number, your name, and the defendant's name. And then in the two spot in the middle, you're going to put the defendant's information, because you will be sending this to the defendant prior to, at the same time that you're sending it to the court. Now you're going to fill out their name, their address, all of their contact information, and then you're going to put in the date that the court gives you for the final judgment hearing, the name of the judge, which will be on the notice you get from the court, the time, the county, the address, all of the information that the defendant would need to be able to attend the hearing if he or she would like to attend the hearing. On the next page, all of these lines are listing any relief you are seeking from the court, whether it's child support, custody, parenting time, alimony, equitable distribution, attorney's fees, filing fees, anything that you are requesting. You're going to fill out that you're asking the court to equitably distribute this property, the property of the civil union, and you're going to list, or the marriage, and you're going to list all of those properties, assets, and debts on these lines. And then when you go down further, there's lines for child support. You would check next to that, and you would fill in the amount of child support you're seeking. If you're seeking alimony, you would check that box, and you would fill in the amount of alimony you're seeking. And there's other options for life insurance policy, for the children to ensure the child support, for health insurance, for a distribution of medical, dental, and other uninsured medical expenses for your children. And then there's a blank space where you can put in any other requests that you're seeking. Now, the court will look at this form and take proofs from you at the hearing as to whether you will be granted these reliefs. But these are the things that you are asking the court to order in your specific case. You would complete the bottom by filling in the county, the address of the courthouse, signing it and dating it. And then you would send this form as part of your default, your request to enter default, or the notice of proposed final judgment. You would send this to the defendant and to the court as well.
Okay, so there are some additional forms that may be needed to be filed at a later time. If the first one being the answer to the counterclaim, and that's going to be used if the defendant answers the complaint for divorce, does an answer or an answering counterclaim. So we'll get into that, and that's a little later in the packet here. And then there's also a family part case information statement, which is required if you're looking for any information to be adjudicated in the complaint for divorce. Then it's required to be filed with the family court 20 days after the complaint for divorce has been filed. And you can get that form either by going on njcourts.gov or by calling the local courthouse, and we can go ahead and email that form to you.
As Nicole said, the first of the extra forms is the answer to the counterclaim for divorce. So If the defendant is served and they file what's called an answer and counterclaim, this is the form you would need to file in response, answering their answer and counterclaim. You would fill out your information on the top: name, address, telephone number, the county, the docket number. The plaintiff and defendant would stay the same because it's all the same case. So you're still the plaintiff, they're still the defendant. You would fill in your name, your address, and similar to the complaint that you filed, it's the similar format. It's just instead of listing the relief you want, you're responding to the things they put in their answer and counterclaim. Then in all these boxes for numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down, as many paragraphs as they have, you would either admit or deny the things they're putting in those paragraphs in their complaint. Then you would fill out whether it's going to be a divorce or a dissolution of a civil union. You would state on the counterclaim based upon, and then in this blank, you would state whichever cause of action the defendant put in their counterclaim, whether it's irreconcilable differences or another cause of action, you would write that in this blank. And then you would put on the third blank the paragraph of the counterclaim that you are objecting to, and that is stating the cause of action. And on the bottom, you sign, you print your name, and you date it. And you would file this with the court and serve a copy or send a copy to the other party so that they are aware of the allegations and your answer.
Now, along with that answer to the counterclaim, you would also need to include a check or money order or some type of payment of $175 with that pleading.
Thank you both for providing information on how to complete the divorce packet. Now, many of you may be wondering how to file your divorce packet once it's completed. There are several ways in which to do so. You can mail it to the courthouse, you can drop it off at the courthouse, or you can file online with the Judiciary Electronic Document Submission System. The acronym is JEDS, J-E-D-S. From the JEDS system, you upload your court documents online. Just go to njcourts.gov, click into the Self-Help Center, and choose Submit Court Documents Online JEDS. I just want to take a brief moment to explain to you what we do in the Resource Center. It's a place where we can assist court users with the completion of forms or answer questions about the court process. Please keep in mind that we cannot give legal advice. Well, I believe that concludes our presentation. Thank you for viewing our divorce clinic. If you have any questions about the divorce process, need assistance with filing online with JEDS, or manually completing the divorce packet, please contact the Resource Center at the Superior Court of Atlantic and Calumet Counties. Also, please take a moment to review the contact information for South Jersey Legal Services and other resources as well. Thank you again for viewing.